Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a fascinating piece of source material that recently sent an absolute shockwave across the internet. We're talking about tens of thousands of YouTube comments flooding in from a truly massive community of DIYers and homeowners, and they were all basically asking the exact same question. Please tell me more about that stove. The stove they're talking about is sitting in a farmhouse in Holmes County, Ohio. It's an Amish home, and it manages to stay perfectly warm for 24 hours straight. And here is the kicker. It does this after burning just a few small sticks for about an hour. That's it. No hauling massive logs, no constantly tending to the fire. You just have this short, intense fire in the morning, and the house radiates comfortable heat until the exact same time the next day without anyone even touching it. It's this mysterious, almost magical-sounding system that completely eliminates the monthly heating bill.
So, this brings us to a rather incredible question, right? What if a system that costs practically nothing could heat your home forever? The guy who built that incredibly efficient Ohio stove, he spent exactly $50 on the materials to make it. $50. But as with all things that sound a little too good to be true, there is a major complication here. The builder revealed that the reason you haven't seen this in literally every home across the country isn't because the technology fails. Actually, it's because it works too well. So well, in fact, that building this specific type of system is highly restricted or even functionally illegal in 37 states.
To truly understand why a $50 system is so incredibly disruptive, we have to look at the staggering financial alternative, $42,000 to $72,000. To put that into perspective, that is what the average American household is going to spend on standard heating costs over the lifespan of a typical 30-year mortgage. We're talking about thousands of dollars a year just to keep the freezing temperatures at bay, right? Writing a check every single month to a utility company. It's a massive, often completely unquestioned financial burden that most of us just, accept as the normal cost of living in a modern house.
Now contrast that massive number with a one-time material cost of $50. This system, which is often referred to as a rocket mass heater, requires only a few super basic components. You need a repurposed steel barrel, some fire bricks, a little clay from the garden, a bit of heat-resistant refractory mortar, and a metal tube. That's the entire shopping list. You don't need a massive budget, you just need an understanding of a totally forgotten physics principle. So let's break down exactly how this simple collection of everyday materials can actually replace decades of expensive utility bills.
When you compare this to traditional heating, the difference is literally night and day. A conventional metal wood stove might claim on the box that it's 75% efficient, but in a real home, it operates way closer to 35%. Why is that? Well, because a standard stove burns wood incompletely. It sends highly volatile gases and 400 to 600 degrees of totally usable heat straight up the chimney. You are literally watching your money and your heat float up into the sky, all while creating this dangerous tar-like creosote buildup inside your chimney. But a rocket mass heater? It turns this whole logic upside down. By burning the wood incredibly hot and capturing the exhaust, the air leaving the system is only 90 to 100 degrees. That massive difference in temperature is heat that stays inside your living room instead of heating the winter sky.
The physics behind this system work in 3 remarkably simple steps. It's almost like a giant puzzle. First, instead of tossing big, heavy logs into a metal box, you feed small sticks horizontally into a J or L-shaped combustion chamber. Second, the fire gets pulled into an insulated vertical tube called a heat riser. This creates a roaring updraft, honestly sounding like a miniature jet engine, where temperatures hit a staggering 1,800 degrees. At that extreme heat, the smoke itself catches fire, which completely eliminates that dangerous creosote and black smoke. Finally, those ultra-hot, super clean gases don't just go to a chimney. No, they are routed horizontally through a thermal mass bench made of clay, brick, or stone, which absorbs all that heat like a giant battery.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer scale of efficiency here. It's almost hard to believe. According to data from the Approval Research Center, which is a prominent testing ground for these systems, switching to a rocket mass heater results in an 80 to 90% reduction in wood usage for the exact same square footage and climate. Let that sink in. Imagine replacing a massive truck-sized pile of heavy split logs with a single wheelbarrow full of fallen branches and twigs you just picked up from your yard. You don't even need a chainsaw. You are heating an entire home using just 10% of the fuel a traditional wood stove demands. And the crazy thing is, this isn't actually some brand new invention. It's really the rediscovery of ancient engineering. Humans have known for millennia that stone stores heat while metal wastes it. We see this from stones placed around fires in the Bronze Age Alps 4,500 years ago, to the Roman hypocaust and Korean Andol radiant floors, all the way up to the highly engineered German Kutschelöfen masonry heaters in the 15th century. When Amish immigrants came to America, they brought that Kachalofen technology with them, and they kept it. But the rest of America? We completely abandoned this thousands of years old proven technology in the 1950s in favor of modern forced air central heating.
To prove just how respected this thermal mass technology used to be, there's a fantastic quote from none other than Mark Twain. While traveling through Germany in 1878, Twain observed these masonry heaters and wrote, "One firing is enough for the day, the cost is next to nothing, and the heat produced is the same all day instead of too hot and too cold by turns." He literally called it the best stove ever invented nearly 150 years ago. He completely recognized the genius of a thermal battery that provides consistent, safe, radiant heat for a fraction of the cost, long before our modern alternatives took over.
So, why on earth did we abandon a system that Mark Twain loved so much? Well, look at the rise of the $30 billion modern heating industry. In the 1950s, a massive marketing push successfully branded traditional masonry heaters as primitive and old-fashioned. The forced air furnace was sold as the ultimate symbol of modern convenience. Think about it. A house with a masonry heater is a house that might never need to buy heating fuel again. But a house with forced air? That's a customer for life. You're paying for fuel, filters, maintenance, and monthly bills that literally never stop. The industry entirely shifted toward a model that ensures recurring revenue.
Which brings us to a massive regulatory roadblock, and honestly a pretty fascinating paradox regarding emissions. The EPA's maximum legal limit for particulate matter from a certified wood stove is 2.5 grams per hour. However, independent testing shows a well-built rocket mass heater produces just 0.12 grams per hour. That means this $50 DIY stove is a staggering 20 times cleaner than the maximum allowable limit for a government-certified stove. Yet, despite being vastly superior for the environment, the rocket mass heater remains broadly uncertified and restricted in a lot of local fire codes.
Now, you might be wondering, why not just get it certified? Well, the reason for this restriction isn't about the emissions at all, it's entirely about the testing process itself. You see, the EPA only certifies identical, factory-manufactured products. Because rocket mass heaters are custom-built on-site from local materials, there's no factory assembly line to certify. For a manufacturer to get a design certified, it costs upwards of $60,000 in testing, inspections, and annual fees. Take the specific case of a couple in Jackson County, Oregon. They built a super clean, custom rocket heater for $4,200. Proved via lab tests it was 20 times cleaner than the EPA limit, but were ordered by inspectors to demolish it anyway. They were forced to replace it with a $9,800 certified stove that actually polluted more, simply because their custom build lacked the expensive certification paperwork.
So the crucial point is, how are people actually using this today if they already own a standard home? Currently, there are three main paths people are taking to navigate these rules. First, building the heater in a less restricted outbuilding, like a shed or a workshop, and piping the heated water or air into the main house. Second, utilizing a legal loophole for traditional masonry heaters. In many states, if the unit weighs over 1,800 pounds, it qualifies for a mass exemption and bypasses wood stove certification entirely. And third, a lot of people living in rural, off-grid areas are simply building them quietly without permits, relying on the fact that the stoves produce absolutely no visible smoke or smell to attract complaints.
Let's quickly geek out on a design secret buried in the Aprovo Research Center data that makes this whole thing even more efficient. A standard straight internal pipe within the thermal bench will give you about 12 hours of radiant heat. But if you route that pipe into a serpentine shape, basically making two full reversals like a snake inside the bench, the hot gases travel 3 times the distance. This simple geometric change drops the exit temperature to barely above room temperature, capturing nearly 100% of the heat and doubling the storage time to a full 24 hours. And the best part? It uses the exact same materials, costs $0 additional dollars, and takes maybe 2 extra hours of labor to bend the pipe. That is a real game changer.
It is just remarkable to think that this level of extreme efficiency has existed for centuries, carried over by communities like the Amish, while the rest of us just normalized writing monthly checks for our heat. It leaves us with a pretty provocative final thought to chew on. What other ancient, highly efficient knowledge has been quietly pushed aside or buried in code to protect a modern industry's recurring profit? It really makes you stop assuming the standard way is the best way and rethink whether we should keep paying endlessly for the warmth that the Earth and a little bit of forgotten physics is happy to provide for almost free.